like we both at the core of us, we only each wanted to be loved really, really badly.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Orphic. My name is Alyssa. I'm an astrophysicist. I have my PhD, and I want to understand the consciousness of the universe and the consciousness of astrophysics. Everything in the universe is alive. It has a soul, and I want to understand how it all works and how to blend science and spirituality. So that's what I'm doing on my Instagram and on this podcast. Follow me on Instagram at interdimensional.astrophysics. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Mikayla with Mariposa Moonchild. I do empathic energy medicine and shadow alchemy, and I'm more and more really feeling into and learning what that means and even what those words mean, and especially after my recent experience, which we're going to get into on the podcast. But I am here to be a part of this movement into the new paradigm, this movement of healing ourselves, to heal the planet, to heal Mother Earth, and deepen our connection to our bodies, to our sisters, to our communities, to the land, to the earth, to the animals, and to bring us into that new earth space where this connection lives within us. And living from the heart is the default. It's not just once in a while, it's the default. And I'm still learning, but I am here to support and be a part of this healing process.
Yeah, I like that you said deepen the connection to like the land and everything because, yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's ground in, do some breathing.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to light my Palo Santo. So I invite you to set yourself up however you would like to receive the ground in. I like to close my eyes personally. And I could really use some extra grounding today. So, all right, I'm going to place a hand on my heart to really take a moment to feel into my heart space, in my chest, and taking a deep, big belly breath in, filling our lungs all the way to the top. Pausing here and opening our mouths and releasing, letting it go. A couple of cleansing breaths. Let's take another one just like that. Big breath in. Feeling the lungs all the way at the top, pausing. In that pause, bringing any and all tension that's in your body, gathering it all together in your chest, in your lungs. And when you're ready, open your mouth and let it go. Release. Let the tension go. Now continue taking breaths just like that on your own. And I want you to imagine silver roots that are coming out of your root chakra. Really thick, chunky, wide roots, and feel them buried down into the soil beneath you, working their way through the soil and the dirt and the rock, feeling their strength as they move down and spiral and anchor you deep into the earth, feeling them as they go all the way down and reach the center of the earth and connect to the core of the earth, taking a moment to feel into your body and these roots and this connection. And with the breath, breathing beautiful white light from Mother Gaia up through your roots and into your root chakra and into your body, filling up your root chakra with that beautiful white light, filling up your sacral, your solar plexus, your heart, your throat chakra, your third eye chakra, and all the way up into the crown, and moving out of the crown up into the cosmos, high, 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 up into the cosmos, wrapping around a beautiful star of white light and having that energy wrap around the star and back down into your body, into your crown, down through the core of your body, through all of your chakras, and back down through your roots into the earth. And let's take one more big, deep breath, holding, finding the intention to let everything and anything that's ready to be released go and let it out. Let go. And when you're ready, just slowly and gently bring yourself back into this space.
Talk about a proper grounding in.
Yeah, I
We
felt
went
like it was
down.
needed.
We went down, we went up, we went everywhere. No, it was good. Yeah, that was great. And I agree. I think it will be needed. So, what are we talking about today?
Okay. On Friday evening, I was invited to kind of last minute, the week of, I was invited to a mushroom ceremony. And the plants have been calling me for a while. I've talked about that on the podcast, that it's come through all the time. Listen to the plants, listen to the plants. So
Mm-hmm.
this ceremony, this plant medicine ceremony had been calling me for a while too. And I was invited to a couple others over the summer, but they just didn't line up. Like I was physically not even around. Like I was at a music festival during one and I
Oh,
was back in
yeah.
Alberta during another time. So they just really didn't ever work out. And then this was the first
Mm-hmm.
one that finally was able to work out. So, and this ceremony was an all women's ceremony, which the other ones I was invited to weren't. They were like co-ed, which is totally fine. And I'm sure I will go to some of those in the future as
Mm-hmm.
well. But
Yeah.
now that I was able to go to this one with all women, it was all meant to happen for a reason, because I believe the first one that I was meant to go to was meant to be an all sister one, an all women's one. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
the other ones didn't work out.
Yep.
Yeah. So
And that's it.
and that's it.
It was great. Well, yeah, so basically in terms of, what we've discussed, like all that Mikayla has told me, so well, you told me like a few things, like a few highlight things, but they were very much like the overall theme was like, holy shit. Holy shit.
Well, I think
I
I
don't think I'm the
texted you
same
the next
person.
day and I just said, holy fuck.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, right.
And you're
That was
kind of
it.
like,
It
oh
was holy
wow,
fuck.
like it was like good. It was like whatever. And I was like, no, like you don't even understand.
Yeah.
Not that you don't
You were like,
understand, but I was just like,
no, like I probably don't. But also, yeah, like I didn't, and even going into one of these things, like you never know what's going to happen, especially if you're in such a sacred ceremony like that, because it's one thing to do a mushroom trip, or I don't really know. I've never done a proper full mushroom trip. I've microdosed. I've kind of gotten a little bit close, but I don't know, and especially never in some kind of very sacred ceremony setting like that. So I'd imagine that it really amplifies just the experience that you're having. But we were talking when you were about to go into it and everything, you were definitely like, I'm a little nervy, or like, I don't know what to expect. And I'm like, yeah, I would be a little nervous too, because I'm still like, I want to do a full mushroom trip soon. And I know I will, and I know I'm ready. But even for that, I'm a little like, it's a lot. It's a lot. And yeah. And then you came back and you're like, no, like I'm a different person kind of, and maybe not kind of, I don't know why I added that. But so then it was just funny kind of for the last few days, just anytime I went to send you a voice memo about something, I'm just like, there's no way Mikayla is even capable of processing my silly little life right now. Like I just like literally the last few days, I just visualized you as like, as almost like a, like suspended, about to be floated up to a UFO, just like floating in midair. I'm like, you're definitely still in midair. I don't know
Yeah.
how you're supposed to like deal with my problems on a voice memo, but I sent them anyway.
And I still listened.
I know.
Yeah, the last
It's
couple
just
days
funny.
have definitely been interesting. And Bryce has been away on a golf trip too, so like I've been
Oh,
alone.
is he's still away?
Yeah, he's still away. He's coming home today, so maybe he'll come home in the
Mhm.
middle of this, and then I have to explain it
Yeah.
all to him too. And I haven't really told him much about it either. We
Just
briefly
tell him
talked.
to listen to the episode.
Yeah, I'll probably just tell him to do that. Like we briefly
Yeah.
kind of chatted about it yesterday, and he was like, "Oh, so it was good." It was kind of the same thing, and I was like,
It was like,
"Yeah." I was like, "It was. It was
good's
good."
the word. Good is a word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, is it even that? But yeah, I going into it, I was nervous. Like I
Mhm.
was nervous, and I've heard before, Lucia said this when I was in linking awareness, like sometimes anxiety in the body is just your body knows what's going to happen before you do. And so sometimes
Yeah.
anxiety, like, right, because anxiety and excitement are really the same thing. So it's just
Yes,
like your
yes.
body knows about this change that is going to happen and it feels it. And especially for those of us that are very sensitive, which most of us here are, you can really feel that and then interpret it as anxiety too. But there's a few different things. I was just anxious about the mushrooms, like the mushrooms in general, because I have dabbled in using mushrooms before, but only recreationally. I've never sat in ceremony like this before. You also know, like in a ceremony like this, like we're not microdosing, we're macrodosing. Like you get a dose, like you're getting a good dose, like, and you kind of have to do it, like if you're there,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you're there for.
Exactly.
There to just sit around and watch.
Exactly. And my experience with mushrooms this far, I've microdosed and I have macrodosed, but like smaller macrodosing, like nothing really that crazy. And I've kind of had an interesting relationship. Like I've definitely felt really anxious on them before. I spoke about my experience feeling that anxiety during linking awareness when we did do a microdose, and I kind of doubled up on my microdose, but I remember really feeling it and feeling very anxious and just feeling all this energy in my body, and I just had to shake it out. And I really had these moments of being like super hyper aware, super sensitive and super hyper aware, and specifically of what other people were thinking about me, like being really, even though I knew that I was safe in the space, like being very hyper aware of others' like perception of me. And even like, oh, if I move my arm like this, is someone thinking I'm weird? And it was just kind of like this like cycle that kept looping, and it was just like really uncomfortable. And I've had that happen before as well. And I also have had pretty nice like grounding experiences too, but I've also never I haven't, I would say, taken enough where I've like really gone really deep. So yeah, I was a little nervous, because the other thing is this is really vulnerable. It's really fucking vulnerable. And I don't like to be vulnerable. And it's even really vulnerable for me to like admit that, because I feel like, I don't know, like if I show other people my weaknesses or my vulnerability, or if they know about my weaknesses, if they know about it, then they have power over me. And I feel like for so many years of my life, I tried to live in a way where I wasn't giving people any type of power over me, because I learned when I was so young not to do that, and that I have to be in power and I have to be in control, so that I won't put anyone in a position to, I don't know, like I guess have power over me in like a negative way, or use my vulnerability or my anxieties against me, because that happened to me when I was younger.
Right. I was going to say it comes from experiences. And do you think it's more surrounding like experiences around friendships?
Yeah. And with women.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, female friendships.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think this is big, because this is a really big topic that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, like the sisterhood energy. And like, you know, some of us have these like kind of karmic imprints on on, female friendships and things that repeat themselves and lessons to learn around that. And, so it's a big topic.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was part of it. Is I was nervous of just how the mushrooms were going to make me feel. And the other part of it, I was nervous to be in a group of all women.
Yeah.
And that's like hard for me to admit too, because I don't want other people to know that about me or that I feel that way. And it wasn't that I wasn't excited, because I was, and I knew all the women were going to be absolutely so cool and awesome. But there's still like this piece of me that's like, sometimes feels like I struggle navigating a dynamic of a group of women because of my past. And it's like, I already put these things up of just like, well, what if they're judging me, and what if this? And so I naturally kind of put a guard up, and I'm aware of that, and I've been working on that. But I knew that with the mushrooms and with the nature of the ceremony and with it being all women, which I was excited for, but I also knew that it was going to put me in this position where I had to be really, really, really vulnerable. And I was a little afraid of that because because
it's in your body.
Yeah.
So, of course you are.
Yeah. Like, as much as I told myself, I don't need to worry. I don't need to worry about these women judging me, or I don't need to worry about this. There's still something in the back of my head that's like, that needed to keep me safe, that maybe didn't fully trust, that there's just this voice in the back of my head that's like still trying to keep me guarded or overanalyze, and these are things that I was aware of and I've been trying to work on, because I don't want to have that voice that's always there. But because of some of my past stories, that is something that has been really built into and programmed in my body. And it's not just me. I think a lot of us women can relate to this, because it's not our fault, but we've been programmed to be competitive against each other, and in a lot of ways. Like, I mean, everyone's upbringing and whatever is different, but there's a lot of ways in which society has programmed us for that.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and like, I feel like I don't necessarily relate to the, like, because we don't have similar experiences with like the friendship stuff. For me, like, I have a thing with like female authority figures that I just have had negative experiences with. And I don't feel like that's me putting something on them. Like, I don't know where that dynamic, kind of came from, but like, I have something with that, and I don't know. So, everyone has their own thing.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same story for it to still be relationship with women. Right.
Right.
And navigating that dynamic, and however that looks. So it was interesting because the day of, I was rushing around trying to clean my place because Bryce was gone. So I needed somebody to come and stay with like Osa and Newt for the night, just so I knew that they were safe and good, and so that Osa wasn't lonely. So, my nervous system's jacked up. I'm already running around. Yeah. I'm someone who tends to be late for things. So I'm doing my best to not be late, but have the house clean, because I don't want someone to come stay in a gross house, and just all of those things. Yeah. And then I'm thinking too, like, it was really interesting because I also, when it came time to get ready, it was interesting because I had no time to get myself ready.
No time
to get myself ready. Got it. But it was also interesting because this thought came up where I'm like, don't put makeup on. Don't go to this with makeup on. So I already had decided before I didn't have the time to get ready that I wasn't going to wear makeup, which is also interesting too, because like, going into a group of women, like, usually you kind of want to like look nice or like feel nice. But I just had this feeling where it was like, no, I'm just going to go absolutely no makeup, no concealer, no nothing, no makeup. But I was planning on doing my hair. Like, because my hair is this kind of like curly mess. It feels like sometimes it's kind of frizzy. Yeah. And I had just washed it, and I was like, I would like to straighten it and curl it. So it's just kind of this nice, like, that would feel a little bit nicer for me. And then I'll go with no makeup. Nope. No time to do my hair. No time.
Oh, natural.
So we're going completely natural to this, which for some people that might not be that big of a deal. And it wasn't a huge deal, but I still felt into it, because usually I would say in situations where I'm meeting new people, I want to put my best self forward. Not that I didn't do that, but I think maybe there's a belief that my best self is with a little bit of makeup on and my hair done a little bit, and not full glam. Like I'm not a full glam type of girl for something like this, but just like, doing myself up and trying to make myself look as good as possible. And so I didn't do that. I went completely.
Yeah. You went natural too.
Yeah. So I went all natural, which I'm very happy about in retrospect. And that was already part of the learning process. Right. I'm just like accepting myself.
Yeah. I'm in so much acceptance.
Yeah. Like I just like really am. But it was interesting. It's like, I'm also in this rush and I'm getting ready to go. And I'm like thinking about what clothes am I going to wear and how am I going to look? And, even like I look down at my toenails. I'm like, my toenails are so grubby and I don't have any time to do anything about them. And it's just like all these thoughts pop up of like, well, whatever. Like it just has to be what it is. But then it's just like, well, is somebody going to look at my toenails and are they like going to judge me on my toenails? And it's, and like those thoughts are nothing against the women that are there. That's just like my own insecurities that come up because it's almost just like, I'm just so used to thinking, I think that everyone else is like judging you all the time and like living in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially women. So
yeah.
And then another thing was too, is like my journal. I had just finished my journal and like it said like, bring a journal and bring your stuff. So I'm also like rushing around trying to like get a journal very last minute, like literally running into the store, trying to like pick out a journal, trying to be so fast. Cause I also want to make sure that I'm there on time. We're supposed to be there at 6, but we're going to start the ceremony at 6:30, which is good because it gives you some like cushion room. But I'm just like running around trying to like find this journal, and I get the journal. And why I'm mentioning these things is it's just so funny because I never used the journal and it didn't matter. But there's this piece of me that it was like this like control piece that I like, I like needed it instead of just like, falling into the trust, which we'll get into that a little bit more. So, like I said, I'm going to do my best to articulate it all. So then I get there. We were standing out on the deck of this beautiful woman's house. She has the property there. I think a lot of the time Jay does her ceremonies. One of the space holders in Medicine Women does the ceremonies at her house, but because of the fires, I believe we were looking for a new space. So this beautiful soul named Jada that actually came from Long Island and now Long Island,
where I am.
Yes. And now has this beautiful off-grid property out here in BC. And she had her beautiful house there and her deck. And then we journeyed in her Mongolian yurt, womb cocoon space. It was
a lot of words. Okay. Nice.
It was so beautiful though. But we met on the deck. It was nice. I chatted with everyone, kind of got to know some of the women that were there. We sat down and we talked about if we wanted to share like our intents and stuff like that. And so just feeling into that. I kept going over and over my intent. I'm kind of a person who like never really seems to put like one intent into something. I like to like put it all on. But the intent that kept coming back to me over and over was show me the way. Show me the way. Because I knew that I was meant to be here with the plants. The plants have been calling me for a while. They've been asking for me to listen. And so I was asking the plants to show me the way. And I don't know if I completely knew what that meant yet, if that was like the next step in my life, the next kind of way forward, if that's with my business or whatever it was, just like show me the way, just like kept coming through to me. And then also on the deck, in sharing, one of the beautiful women that was there shared this really beautiful story. It's called The Cow and the Buffalo. And so I guess and I'll try to articulate as best I can, but back in the day, the indigenous or whoever were trying to figure out the difference between the cow and the buffalo. Like, what's the difference between the cow and the buffalo? And they said that they figured it out when they watched when the storm came and they watched them. So when the storm came, the cows tried to outrun the storm. They would go the opposite direction of the storm and they would try to outrun it. But because of that, the storm would just follow them because they would try to run away this way and the storm would follow them. So they were prolonging their fear, essentially. They were running away because they were afraid, but they were continuing in fear because they were continuing to run away as the storm followed them. Mm-hmm. But the buffalo, when their herd sees a storm, they come together and they walk into the storm. They walk head on into the storm to face the storm and face the fear of the storm, because then it will pass and it will go over them.
Ooh, chills. Cool.
Chills.
Like that. Mm-hmm.
I like that too. And I remembered that story. And so we were talking about, in these plant medicine journeys, sometimes you're faced with things and how we have the choice to be the cow or the buffalo. And we have the choice to face these things head on and really go into it. And at the time I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool story, but, didn't realize quite the effect that it was going to have, quite yet.
Came full circle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So then after that, we proceeded up to the Mongolian yurt. We were asked to walk up there silently, and I chose to walk barefoot to kind of feel into the land. And I guess that is a tradition that they do, is that when you go up to the yurt, there's about a 10-minute walk up through the forest, which is just beautiful. Mm-hmm. And you walk in silence. Mm-hmm. So all of us women walked up there. Yeah, it was really powerful. We walked up there in silence. And then I get up there and it's just like, you can just feel the energy of this yurt and the land. This is also really, really special land that's come to hold this, that Jada Fire, her name is, that gets to be the keeper of this. So cool. Thank you, Jada, for being the keeper of this land and allowing us to journey here. But even just the Mongolian yurt, it's just situated right in the forest in the trees, and it's got this beautiful deck on it, and it's just such sacred energy coming from it. Mm-hmm. We talked about a couple of things too. So the door of the yurt was made by a family in Mongolia, which Jada told us, and it actually has a spirit guardian built into it that guards the door or guards the yurt, which is really cool. And she's like, and it's actually there. And I'm like, oh, I don't doubt you. It's for sure there.
It's real.
So when you went into the yurt, out of respect, you bowed before you walked in the door every time, and you entered with your right foot. You put your right foot in first, and you walked to the right around every single time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. That was interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really, really cool. So then we each got a chance to go in. You find your spot, you get set up. I brought my foamy mattress from my camper bed and my blankets, and I brought quite a few different things for clothes too, because I'm also generally the type of person who likes to be prepared. I have my backpack with me at all times.
Yes, you do.
Yes. It's just it's a comfort thing that I have all my stuff in. I if it gets cold, I have a sweater, I have my lip chap, I have my lotion, I have my water bottle, I have my whatever. So I brought some clothes, some pants, some shorts, some big t-shirts, a little thing to go, a jacket, just whatever, as well as my blankets and my pillow. And I brought my spiritual tools too. So I brought all my crystals and stuff and got my space really nice and set up in there. And then as well as the mushroom journey, it was also a hape journey and sananga and cacao as well. Mm-hmm. So we sat with the hape first, which I have spoke about that on the podcast before. It's a type of tobacco, and then it gets I guess blown up or put into your nose. And I did that journey with Jay before when I went to her place and did the sananga and the hape together, so which was good. I'm happy I knew what it was like, and it's kind of spicy, I guess.
It was peppery.
Yeah. definitely like peppery. That's how it felt before. And it's kind of like in in your head. So that was like where we started kind of with like the beginning of our journey in the cocoon womb space, which I also really liked that this like yurt was, she calls it like the cocoon womb space. And especially as like we're all there in sisterhood. So we each go up to the medicine women that are serving the hape. And you kind of like put your tongue up and like try to close the back of your throat so it doesn't drip down your throat and it more like stays in your nostrils. But you do both sides. So like you do one, and when you're able to open your eyes, you do the other side. And yeah, and it's every time like it just hits you with like you're just like holy fuck.
Yeah, a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it's funny because the Sananga kind of burns the eyes too. It's just probably funny from like an outsider looking at it. It's like, why do you do these things that hurt? It's like, I don't know. I grow through the pain.
Yeah.
But no, the hape is actually really cleansing. So that's what we were doing too. We were being very intentional about cleansing out our vessels before. We were also, and before the ceremony too, in the email, we were also asked to avoid like alcohol and recreational drugs and medications unless necessary. And even furthermore, like feeling into if it resonates to maybe refrain from meat because the spirit of the animal can still be there, especially, or like the energy of the animal, especially if like slaughtered or whatever. And from coffee and stimulants, and like really just trying to clear out and coming with our vessel as clean as possible for the experience, because it'll really help with the medicine. So then the other plant medicines that we journeyed with were just helping us clear out that vessel and just open us up and prepare us. So I did the hape and went back to my bed and just kind of laid in child's pose. And it was interesting because the first feeling was like, I was just like, oh, wow, like this feels so good. Like I just feel so cleared out and cleansed right now. Like this just feels so nice. Like kind of just like a buzzing, just like and I just like sat in child's pose, and I don't really remember anything necessarily coming to me at that point. I just remember it just feeling like really good and really like cleansing. However, that didn't last super long because then I got nauseous.
That sucks.
Yeah. So that sucked. Again, now and then, like I'm kind of looking around the room and I'm like, I still have to do the mushrooms. I still have to do sananga. I still have to do cacao. And I'm so nauseous and my stomach was so bloated. And I even remember that because I just like, I pulled down my pants so that they were just like underneath my like gut, so my gut could just like stick out. And even that though, because I'm just like sitting there with all these women and I'm like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to have my belly like stick out because I feel like fucking shit right now. And I got a long time to go. Like a long time to go. But yeah, it just sucked. And I just really had to sit in this like uncomfortable nauseousness where I'm like, and I'm also not really a puker. Like, I feel like if I get nauseous, it would be nice to just like puke and get it out. But it's really difficult to make myself puke or for myself to get there. So like my body will more just sit in the nausea and it won't actually really like purge itself.
Right.
So that sucks. Like I've never, like when people are like hungover after going out and drinking, never in my life have I vomited the next day ever. And most people do, I guess. I don't know. But it's just like, but I'll just like sit in like the nausea. Anyways, that's sidebar. But I was just sitting there being really nauseous, being like,
Were you guys talking about it all? Like what was happening with the hape at that point? Or no?
Well, they were serving each woman individually. So they were sitting up at the front and they were saying, we'll like come up kind of popcorn style. Like they'll start with a couple of people. Because it was Jay and Tina serving the medicine at that point. So there's 2 spaces open. And then if there's an open space, you just go up and receive it. And then you go back to your space and just feel into it. Because you kind of want to just like lay down and breathe. You got to really breathe through it.
Yeah.
So other people were going up at the time getting like served and stuff like that. And then I think after that, we were probably talking about the cacao. So then we moved on to doing the cacao journey, which is like a heart opener. And we drank it cold this time to represent the season since it was summer. But oh, I just felt so gurgly, and I didn't really even want to drink the cacao, but I did because
Mm-hmm.
it's part of the ceremony, and I do want to invite this plant medicine into my body, but I was just feeling
Mm-hmm.
so weird. We're also asked to stop eating around 3 or
Mm-hmm.
4-ish in the afternoon, then you don't eat after that.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm feeling kind of like hungry too, and like nauseous and weird. And then I get this nice jar of like cacao, and it went down really slowly. Like I think I was the
Mm-hmm.
last person to like drink it all because I felt so bloated. Like I felt like I didn't want
Yeah.
to put any more liquid into my body, and I was just feeling gurgly and gross, and like, am I gonna throw this cacao up? And like, God, I hope not. And I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
throw up in front of everyone, but I also don't want to feel
Right.
nauseous and like,
Yeah.
yeah, already
It
being in like
was.
my overthinking brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they explain how like the rest of the night's gonna go, and we do have some we have, yeah, a lot of conversation around the mushrooms. We speak about the type of mushroom that was brought there, as well as the dosing. So
Mm-hmm.
they serve a range, a macro dose, but you muscle test for the dose that you
Okay.
do, and then
Yeah.
you don't know the dose.
Oh. So they figure it out for you?
Yeah, they make you your tea and they just give it to you. So you don't know
Mm-hmm.
what you're getting, because elsewise people can kind of get in their head or stuck on the number, or, like
Yeah.
the ego gets in the way of focusing like on the number of the dose that they're getting, which it
Right,
totally makes
right.
sense, because I
That
don't
makes
think
sense.
it would have been good for me at all to know the dose that I
Yeah,
did.
that does make sense. Yeah.
So then we went over to Pam and she did the muscle testing, and I sat with her. She's like, "How are you feeling?" And I'm like, "I'm really nauseous." And she's like, "Okay." And she did her energy work. She worked on me and my stomach, and we were moving things. We were grounding down. And it was so interesting because she did some stuff and like I felt better. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's like just to show how fucking real energy work is,
Yeah. Yeah.
just she's just
It
doing some
actually
energy
helped.
work on me to like help with the
Yeah.
nausea. And then she's like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, "Better, but still nauseous." She's like, "Okay." She like into my gut, like grabs the nauseousness and like pulls it out.
What?
Like just like,
Casual.
and it felt so good. Like she just like let it out and I felt better. And I'm like, "Oh my God, thank you."
Wow. Look at that. All right,
Look at
thank God.
that. She just like knows what to do. Like she's just like, yeah, grabbing me, blah,
That's
blah. And then I'm like looking at her, like, think we're gonna do the muscle testing for the dose. She's like, "You're good." I'm like, "Oh, I'm good." She's like, "Yep, you're good." And she's like writes down my number, like passes it to them. And I'm like,
uh-huh.
"Okay." And keep in mind,
Okay.
we're doing a macro dose. Like, so for anyone that doesn't know, a microdose is anything that's under a gram. A microdose is
Mhm.
anything that's under a gram.
Yeah.
So usually when people are microdosing in the mornings, like some people will do like 50 milligrams. Some people even
Mhm.
up to 100. I would say 100 is a really good sweet spot for a microdose. A lot of people are around there. And then if people want a little bit extra wavy, sometimes, you do 200, 300, depending on the day. But a microdose is anything under a gram. Macrodose is a gram. That's where we're talking grams.
Mhm.
Um, this medicine, we are being served between 3 and 6 grams.
Yeah.
And your body, your body decides where you're gonna be. And you don't know. You don't
Mhm.
know. You don't
Yeah,
know.
that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yep.
So then the tea is made for us. And so, and now this is another thing that I gotta drink after
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
already drank the cacao, and I feel, and like, I don't know if anyone's had mushrooms before, but like, they don't taste the best. Like, I could
Yeah.
already smell it. And whenever I've done like not the capsules and just done the mushrooms, like Bryce
Yeah.
always makes fun of me because I'm always like, "Ooh, because it's just such a
Yeah.
like, if you like taste it,
No.
love to the mushrooms. I love you mushrooms, but like,
Yeah, anytime I have had like eaten them like that and in microdose form, I always like put it on like with some peanut butter or something. I never just like go for it raw. So,
And I mean, mind you, it was made in a tea and they made it very
right.
lovely. There was lemon in it and ginger. So it
Okay.
actually
That's
wasn't too bad, but it's also
yeah.
like, it's like crushed up. And so like, it's like kind of, it's like when the chunks get stuck, like the liquid goes
Yeah.
down and then the chunks.
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, I'm definitely the last one. And I'm just like, well, I have to do it all. I have to do it all. Like,
Yeah.
obviously. And I'm still trying to drink it. And it was also interesting because since we got
Right.
different doses, I'm looking around at people's jars. And some people's, are a little bit more transparent and then others. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
mine's really fucking thick. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
shit. but you don't know. Other people's are thick
Right.
too, but I'm like, mine's thick.
Yeah.
So yeah, finally sat there and drank it. I'm like, all right, here we go. Really doing it. Let's go, mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Like, don't know what to expect. And then we do the Sanunga journey. So we do that before, I guess, the mushrooms kick in, but after we take the mushrooms. So I've talked about Sanunga on the podcast before. I've done it at Lucius before. I went to Jay also and had Sanunga administered. So it's the drops that you get in the eyes that kind of like burn. They don't kind of
Yeah.
burn. They burn.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a good feeling. I'd really like to get my own Sanunga and start working with it because it's like just this really clearing and like flushing out.
Yeah.
Um,
I would like to try it one day.
yeah,
I will.
yeah, you can try it with me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, or whoever. It doesn't have to be me, but I know by the next time you see me, I'll definitely have some.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, so then we just kind of laid on the edge of our beds. They came around with the Sanunga. And administered it, and you kind of move your head, and it starts to burn. You're like, oh, God. You're like, what do I do? What do I do? And then you just like start breathing into your heart. And I do find that I do journey on Sanunga. So it was interesting because my journey with what came up with me with Sanunga was acceptance. And it was specifically people, and this was before the mushroom journey even, it was specifically people in my life. Like all of a sudden these people popped up to me in my life, and it was my mom, it was my dad, it was my sisters,
Mm-hmm.
it was Bryce. And it was somebody else who I've had a really, really, really difficult journey with. Specifically in female relationship for over a very long amount of time, of years. And it's something in my old story that I really struggled with. I really struggled with feeling accepted. And yeah, but anyways, this person popped up too. And just what kept coming to me was just like acceptance. So I went down the line of every single person and just said, I accept you. I accept you. I accept you. And I also accept what has happened. Doesn't mean I have to be okay with it, but I accept it,
Right.
I accept it.
There's a difference.
Yeah. So I went down every line and really meant it. Like these feelings, it's like the acceptance was coming out of me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm told to do it. Like you need to go and accept this from each person. It's like the feeling of acceptance was bubbling out of me and wanting to come to each of these people. So I just went down the line. I accept you. I accept you. I accept you. And really, really feeling into what that felt like. And this is big, even with my parents. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. There's
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I've had some struggles there.
Yeah.
And then I moved into forgiveness and looking at each person in the eyes and saying, I forgive you, and really meaning it. And like the forgiveness is coming from a real place of real forgiveness, because I think that's the other thing is in this work, I feel like it's very easy for me to know. I mean, when you like tell yourself, well, I should be happy for them. I should forgive them. That's the right thing to do. That's the spiritual thing to do. I'm a bigger person if I do that, blah, 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 blah. But you can say all that shit and think it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean shit until you actually feel it.
Yeah.
And there's a difference.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of things, I was just telling myself that that's how I should feel. but I wasn't actually there yet.
Yeah.
Which is also
That makes
okay.
sense. Yeah,
That's part of the
definitely.
journey. But I went
It
through
is.
and it was, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, and really meaning it. And then I love you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to every one of them and really meaning it. And I love you. I love you. I love you and really meaning it. And I had to move through each of those with each, like had a moment with each person and moved through them, because I even got to a place where it's like, I forgave them and really meant it. And then it was, thank you. And I really meant it. Like, thank you for playing this part in my life. And I really meant
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. That's big.
It is really big. And with some of those people, one in particular, as well as my parents, like, I'll be honest. Yeah. And just, yeah, to be able to look at them and just be like, thank you. And then I sat with them and I just repeated it was like a version of the Hono'opo prayer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I said that right, but so it was
I don't
the
know how to
version
pronounce
of,
it.
pardon?
I don't know how to pronounce that at all. It's like, oh, no, whatever.
I think it's
the H
the
one,
Hono'opo, Hono'opo Opo or something like that. I'm really sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right, but like
it's
that
difficult.
prayer, which is, I feel like I should look it up because I'm blanking on it.
I know it. I sometimes switch the order, but it's like,
I
love you. I thank.
Yeah,
I think
it's like, please forgive me. Thank you. Wait, no. Yeah, there's
it's like,
four
I'm
of
sorry.
them. Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Thank you.
I'm
I love
sorry.
you. Yes.
Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. So I was reciting that over and over with each person, except for at the beginning doing the acceptance piece. So I accept you. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Or please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And just doing that over and over and just really feeling into it. We haven't even got to the mushrooms yet. We were just at the Sananga. And then it was really powerful because I seen these like shackles that were like on my feet and my arms just break. They just broke off. Wow. And it was like I was free. And I finally let the anger go. It was like I gave myself permission to let the anger go. And I was really realizing that I was keeping myself in this loop of, in this prison of my own anger. And it was keeping me there. And to finally have this prayer with each one of them, like it set me free. And it was that powerful. And that was just the Sananga journey. It was that powerful. I watched the shackles break off of my hands and my feet. And that was really interesting too, because I recently did go to Lucia's and do a Sananga journey. And they said I had a shackle on my left foot and I shook it off. And they said, it's keeping you from flying. You're trying to fly, but the shackle is keeping you down. And they didn't say what it was. They're like, you know what it is. And I just felt like it's this anger. It's this cycle of, I think anger. And I don't like to admit that I'm angry either, because sometimes it doesn't feel spiritual to be angry or to hold it in your body. But I finally released it.
Do you feel like you came to the resolution of it just like in that moment? Like, where do you feel like you were realistically before that moment? Like, do you feel like that moment kind of just like kind of just expedited the process? It almost feels like it kind of just actually was more so like your higher self coming in and saying like your higher self does forgive these people. So it was almost like emerging with that, like, the realistic aspect of like holding on to it versus like, what happened in like the depths of that Sananga moment of like, oh, I actually do forgive them, like for other people that like still haven't found the forgiveness.
Wait, so what's your question?
Like, I do this all the time. Because you said like I actually did forgive them, like in that moment when I released it, up until leading into the day of the ceremony, like where do you feel like your ability to forgive those people or like to accept those situations was before that? Like, did it all kind of just happen there? Do you feel like you were already kind of approaching that point?
Yeah, I would say that I was moving into it, but not to that point. I think I had a lot of built up anger in my body and I was in denial of it. And here's a
Mhm.
really good example. I recently went to Vancouver with my mom and my sister. That was interesting. But it was also a lot of fun. And I told my sister she has a lot of anger in her. Like,
Mhm.
I have no right to tell somebody that, to point out somebody's pain. And I mean, it wasn't just like out of the blue. There was something that came up, but I said, you have a lot of anger in you or whatever. And she's like, you can't just go around telling people that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
whatever. Um, and after
Yeah.
my ceremony, I texted her and I apologized. And I said, I'm sorry. That's not my place to point that out. And, there's this really crazy thing about how everyone's a mirror. And I was just
Mhm.
projecting my own anger that I was in denial of onto you.
Mhm. Wow.
So I think being at Lucia's, and it would be interesting to talk to her, like, maybe she's probably forgot now, but she would have seen that I was going into that mushroom ceremony and she would have known what was needed to be cleared. And with that shackle that was needed to be let go. It was actually the lady who administered the Sananga that brought up the shackle, but I'm sure that they both seen it. And I think that was a tipping point to opening me up. The Sananga also knew that this needed to be cleared before I went into the mushroom ceremony. So
Yeah, interesting.
yeah. So it was, yeah, it was really, really interesting. But anyways, so I moved through that with
Mhm.
the Sananga and then kind of laid in my bed and felt into those mushrooms. So then I watched those shackles like release from my body and they dropped into the ground and they started decomposing and rotting in the ground.
Oh,
And then
wow.
there's even this part where around me was this bubble of like white blue light, and then the shackles were actually this happened first. They were pulled off of me, and then they were dropped back on top of me, but they shed off the light. It's like I was protected from them. They couldn't come back to me, and then they went into the
Oh.
ground to decompose, and it was like just this beautiful moment because I was like, holy fuck, I'm free. Like I don't have to hold this anymore. And I also don't think I maybe realized how badly those were attached to me and how felt like I was in
Yeah.
my own prison in this way with this anger, and how I was like, wow, like I'm free.
Mhm.
So then, yeah, like I said, sitting in bed, kind of just chilling, waiting for them to kick in. This is where it all kind of gets a little bit fuzzy,
Mhm.
but I'll do my best. The first thing I begin to notice is just extreme fucking discomfort. Like just extreme discomfort when I can start to feel them. Extreme anxiety. Like
Mhm.
I just like cocooned in my bed and just put the blankets over me. Um and of course, right to the forefront, hypersensitive and hyper aware of how I was like being perceived.
Mhm.
And just like extreme anxiety and extreme discomfort. And and this is where I'm in my mind, in my brain, as it's the way it's working then. I'm like, what the fuck did you get yourself into? And like I will say, I did not know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
I did not know. Did not know.
Yeah.
And so now I'm having this dialect with myself where I'm like, what the fuck did you do, Mikayla? Like, what, like, because I know that it's just starting and I'm not going to go back. And I'm thinking, okay. And now I'm starting to kind of like, bargain with myself. Like, because I don't know what time it is. We also, when we got there, we were asked to give up our phones. So we all gave our
Mhm.
phones into a little basket and put them away.
Yeah.
Um, I have no idea what time it is. I would imagine we probably started the mushroom journey around, I don't know, maybe 8:30,
Mhm.
maybe. I don't really know. And I know that we would be journeying until probably like midnight, 1-ish in the night. I don't actually know what time it went to. So in my head, I'm already bargaining with myself and I'm like, okay, this will end. This will end. I guess you just have to wait it out for it to end, because I'm just in this extreme discomfort. So I'm like,
Yep.
you're just gonna have to wait it out. And I'm like, okay, so it's only, you know, like maybe is this gonna be like 3 hours or so, maybe like you like just like wait it out. But then I'm also just like going through these uncomfortable feelings of just like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? And also these thoughts are coming up of how the fuck do people do this? Like I listen to these other podcasts talking about people that do ayahuasca ceremonies, and they do these ceremonies, and I'm like, why the fuck do people do this? like
abort
literally. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to do this again. Like why did I thought that I was gonna like this was gonna be good. Like I don't know if I can ever do this again. I don't know if I'm ever gonna come back. I don't even want to come back. Like fuck this. Like fuck this. Like, and I'm just like really just like, and of course, and I'm blankets all around me. I'm just bundled up, like in my bed, just like, oh my God.
So is anyone else like talking to each other at this point? I guess I'm just trying to get like paint the picture of the room, or like what the purpose of doing. I mean, obviously, like there's more to say, obviously, but like at this point, like in the beginning, like is anyone like what is like paint the scene? Everyone is just in their own like little comfy space that they brought, like starting to feel it.
Yes, I would say you're kind of in your own space, and we talked about this beforehand too, of everyone's process is going to look different of what is meant to come to them and what they're supposed to process through. So you very much kind of witness that too, of everyone in their own process, and like the space holders are there to help if need be. But there's also a huge element of letting yourself process and go through it by yourself. So some people were more like talking kind of just like out loud or to themselves, like, and this was the very early stage of it, so I don't really remember. And you're also so much in your own bubble that I didn't fucking care. Like I didn't really care what, I was just so focused in on me and my anxieties. And it was a thing too where and I'm like hyper fixated to like, oh, I have to get up to go to the bathroom, and I don't want to ask for help, and how am I going to get out there? Do my legs even work? Are people going to think I'm weird? Or like he's like very hyper fixated on that too. Like, am I going to be judged if I can't handle this? And I'm afraid to get out of my cocoon. Like, I don't like, now I got to go out and like, what if I got to go out into the world? And now I'm afraid of this. And then having, those thoughts of like, I don't know how people do this and keep coming back to this. Like, I don't know why you would put yourself through this. And then too, like, and I'm asking, and like right away I'm asking the mushrooms. I'm like, okay, so what is it? Like, what do you have to show me? Like, what is it? Like, what's the big epiphany here?
Let's see it.
Right? Like, what's the message? Hello. And it was just like, and it was like, just be. Like, that's just like what at that moment, what kept coming through was just be. Just allow yourself to be in the medicine. You don't need to seek for an answer or seek for something to come. Just like be in the medicine. And then I'm continuously being brought up with this like extreme discomfort. I don't remember it exactly, but very, very, very extreme discomfort. And I'm again being very hyper aware. Like, I feel like I'm too hot and I need to change. Or are people going to be like, why is she constantly changing? Why is she this? Why is she grabbing this? Like, I'm using things as like a security blanket too, if that's like my jacket that I'm putting around me, or like or like whatever it is. And then I just got to a point where, because like the mushroom, they just keep coming, they just keep kicking in, where I'm like, I don't even have the capacity to give a fuck. Like, and it was just this a moment of like deep surrender where I had to let go. And I'm like, okay, I'm here. I chose to do this. I'm here. I'm not going home. I don't know how it's going to look to just sit and wait this out. Like, I'm here. So I'll listen to the mushrooms. I will just be. I will let the experience come to me. And I guess I'm going to be the fucking buffalo. I guess I'm going to be the buffalo. I'm going to
Yeah.
go head on into the storm and face it. So now all the discomfort, the insecurities and stuff that were coming up, so what was happening before in my mind was all of these insecurities wailing around. What do they think of me? How are they perceiving me? Whatever. And my mind is trying to reason of how can I make this feel better for myself? Like if it's like my items that make me feel comfortable, if it's staying in my cocoon, if it's how I speak, how I don't speak, if I stay quiet, whatever. My brain is trying to reason with me of how to make myself feel safer. That's what it's doing before. But now instead, it's like I'm just having to confront the securities head on. So what if they think I'm weird? What if, and this is not, all the women there were great. This was my own insecurities that I had to work through in sisterhood. And this is at the very beginning. Like, this is stuff that I knew that I was probably going to have to work through, but this is only like the first layer. And so I just like, it was like confronting things head on. It's like, okay, what if I do this? And what if I'm perceived as weird? And it was like, oh, well, I accept it. I accept it.
Yeah.
I accept it.
Back to the acceptance.
And moving into that really true acceptance, when I feel like so many times in my life, I was trying to reason or cling on to things or my behavior or something to make me safe instead of just accepting like the moment as it is or accepting myself in it. So I was like continuously faced with these pieces of just like having to accept like this might happen. Like, right? Like this might happen. How do you choose to feel about it? And then just having to be like, okay, well, I accept that might happen. Okay, moving on to the next. Here's the next insecurity. You're faced with it. Okay, I accept that might happen. And then you're also like, that's not that bad. If that happens, that's not that bad. When before it felt like it might have been really, really bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thought process evolution, you know, like accept it. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to die.
Yeah. Well,
if they think that I just did this weird thing with my arm, like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there were so many moments like that too. Cause it's also like, someone's supposed to go with you to go to the bathroom because it's night outside. And that's a journey. That's a journey. And someone like me, I have to pee a lot. So like I'm holding it in. And then I'm like, I'm going to pee my pants. I got to go.
Yeah.
I don't know how to ask for help. I don't even know if I can stand. I really don't want to pee myself. And then just even that journey too. And that's something that in sisterhood, I have struggled with a lot, or just in female relationships, is always finding that balance of either being too much or not enough. And always having that voice in my head telling me that I either did too much or I didn't do enough. And I've struggled with that with some of my best friends now that have never given me a reason to not trust them or to feel those things. But because of some of my previous stories, I've had that like programming in my head. And I remember that even recently, like with a friend, like, should I hug her more? Like, should I give her more hugs? Should I like do more of this? And then I'm like trying to reason with myself, well, I shouldn't force it. And then I'm like, well, am I not doing it enough? Am I not giving her enough hugs? Am I not doing it right? Is it weird where I'm touching her on her arm? And like, just constant thoughts that are always ping-ponging back and forth. And
where the belief is that your friendship or your reciprocal love is conditional on those things. Yeah.
Exactly. Or if I do this, I'm going to be perceived as weird. Or maybe if I act this way or do this, like they're not going to want to be friends with me anymore, but they're not going to tell me that. And I'm going to have to figure that out. And
oh yeah. Gloss over that one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
Just like, that information. And that is such a huge pattern in things that's in these friendships, this secretive thing that it's like this whole thing where it's so natural to be like, it's very natural to assume, especially with the way that the world has been operating, that these things are going to remain hidden from you and that it's your job to figure it out,
Yes.
which increases the paranoia.
Yes.
And it's like so normalized, that's just the way that things have been, that it's always like we always assume like, oh, it's never going to be dealt with in a healthy way. So it's always going to be on me to have to guess.
Yes. And and I recently like went to a music festival with one of my best friends, and I love her very much, and she's never given me any reason not to trust her or feel safe. But I was just, so it's nothing to do with her. It was my own conditioning, my own thoughts. And I was just being very aware of, the thoughts that I was having come up where it's just like, if I'm not doing enough or what if I do this, and like, then what if she's like, that feeling too of like, being worried that someone's like mad at you, even though there's no reason to be. But what if I do something that makes them mad and then they don't tell me, and like, and I got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So anyways, so really having to learn in this situation to surrender to that, and also let myself be held and supported, because like, I'm the oldest in my family. I tend to be hyper independent sometimes. Like, I don't need your help. Like, I don't need to ask for help. Which is weird, because I feel like I can also be on the other end of that too, where I feel like I need all the help, but I'll get to that. So now I got to go out to the bathroom, but they're like, here, like, hold my shoulder, hold my hand. And even for me to just like surrender into that and let that person like fully and completely guide me, and just like not feeling like I'm a burden for them to have to help me. Because like, I need help. I need help.
Yeah.
Like in this moment, like to get there.
Yeah.
And also that it's okay for me to grab their shoulder, or whatever, and let them lead me. And even just something as simple as going to the bathroom. And then I remember getting to the bathroom, but I couldn't even find it. And like, I have these thoughts of, is she taking too long? Is she like, oh my God, like, why can't she figure it out? Like, why can't she do it? Why can't she, like, you know what I mean? So I'm having all of those thoughts that I would have a lot of the time in regular life that I don't tell anyone about, because I don't want anyone to know that I'm vulnerable or that I have insecurities or anxieties, especially around women. So I'm having these all come out. And as I'm journeying to go to the bathroom, whatever, I'm having to face each one of them and go, so fucking what? I gotta pee. So I'm going to do what I have to do to pee. So who cares if she thinks I'm weird, and moving through that. And like, I know deep down that they don't think that anyways, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I had this like fear that they did. And I had to work through that and just move into acceptance of my process. And the thing is my process is different than everyone else. Someone else might be able to go out and find the bathroom and be just fine. I don't know if that was the case. Or they might be able to do things a different way. And it's
right. Like, you were purposely getting pummeled with these thoughts so loud. Like, it was like they're probably usually in your head a little bit, but it was purposefully like loud, like, oh my God, what do they think? What do they think? And this is what the mushrooms were doing for you.
So that extreme discomfort, that's what it was doing for me. And so each one of those thoughts, I just had to face it and just like, so what if, instead of trying to reason with or bring in some other type of like security or safety blanket, like just actually like face it head on. It's crazy. So I moved through a lot of those, and moving into just like acceptance of how I am, and like, well, so what if I take longer? So what if my process looks like this? So what if I say this? Or what if I come off a little weird? That's me. And then just like keep feeling into, because also when I was extreme discomfort, I kept just being like, love. Like, it's like finding this light inside of me. And like, sometimes just the word love would pop up and I'd feel into that. And then, and really feeling into, well, if this is the way I am, then that's okay. And I like love myself for that. And like, I'm just like a really beautiful soul because of those things and because of the way I am.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, it feels like that should be so simple, and I've probably talked about that kind of stuff on the podcast before, but there was, like, a different level of it actually, like, clicking and making sense and, like, actually something shifting in
Mhm.
my DNA where I really believed it, and it was, like, really a thing that, like, I've never experienced before. And
Wow.
then I went, I'd go back to my bed, and it's all kind of a blur. There's multiple times I had to get up and go to the bathroom and do this and try to get this or this or
Yeah.
this. But anyways,
Yeah.
I would go back to my bed, and kind of cocoon, and they're kicking in stronger and stronger. And this was like a weird thing where like sentences kept like repeating in my head, and they seemed to be something from
Mhm.
like my childhood. And it was almost like sometimes my brain, it felt like it didn't even have the capacity to think. So I had to let go of
Mhm.
that because that was the overthinking. I was again trying to reason with myself and like try to like calm myself down by using these words, but I really just needed to come to a place of like just kind of being instead of like the over analyzing, the overthinking. And
Yeah.
it was so
Definitely.
strange because like these words kept, I don't know why, but like something with ketchup kept coming through, ketchup, and something about my bedroom, and I was at my old house, and it was so weird because it was like it was almost like at the
Mhm.
same time my brain felt like it was like fried. Um
Mhm.
and I had this, and they kept burning something in there, and I haven't asked what it is yet. And I would smell it, and I literally thought I was having a stroke. Like I was like, cause I'd smell the burning, and I've heard that before that like people who have strokes,
Oh.
they can like smell burning or something, and it sometimes like happens to me.
Uh-huh.
And it was like also this
Uh-huh.
fear. Um, it was like smelling the burning and then like realizing that they're actually burning something. But when I smelt it, it felt like my whole brain was on fire. Like all the neural pathways were on fire. And I feel like it was a rebuilding of them. But it was also just like
Mhm.
this like moving through acceptance of that too. Like, again, extreme discomfort. Like I don't want my brain to feel like this. Like, what if something happens to me? What if something happens to my body? What if I have a heart attack? What if I have a stroke? And then just being like, so what?
Yeah.
What am
Yeah.
I gonna do?
Yeah.
What am I gonna do?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what?
Extreme acceptance. Yeah.
Extreme acceptance and moving through that. And I still don't quite know what was going on with all the words that were coming up. I think it was some type of trauma that was being released from when I was younger, because it was like sentences, but then it would kind of like get dialed down to like further words, and then I kept just like repeating in my head. It was like ketchup, tomatoes, bedroom,
Mhm.
ketchup, tomatoes, bedroom, ketchup, tomatoes, bedroom,
Yeah.
which is so interesting to me.
S- Sounds like it sounds like it was bringing up like some specific childhood memory or something that yeah, that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it's definitely
Like some scene, it seems like it was like playing a scene from your
it
childhood or something
definitely
like
was,
that.
and I'm still not sure exactly what it was because it's almost like I didn't have the capacity at the time to completely see it or understand it, but I believe the work was still
Yeah.
being done in my body. So I don't
Mhm.
really know. Like
Right.
as far as bedroom, I spent a lot of time alone in my bedroom, like as a child, and like
Mm.
even like as a teen, just a lot of time
Mm.
alone, a lot of time, like I guess probably I didn't really feel like growing up, like inside my house was necessarily super safe. Um, except
Mhm.
for probably being in my bedroom would be the safest place. So, and maybe there's some correlation to maybe how I was feeling at the time. Maybe I didn't feel like everywhere around me was necessarily safe, like in the yurt, but maybe like I was safe in my own cocoon, in my own bed, in my own coziness. I don't, I don't
Yeah.
really know. And I don't really know about the ketchup, but it's very loud. It was
Yeah.
like ketchup, ketchup,
I don't
ketchup,
think you need to
tomatoes,
know,
ketchup. Yeah.
maybe.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I can just trust that
Mm.
there was like, I believe it was probably bringing up some type of trauma.
Yeah.
Um, that was either moving through my body, and then yeah, and then they're kicking in more and more, and you kind of start to get to this place where you're just like writhing around, like you kind of can't feel still. So you're just like, I'm like looking at my hand, and my
Mm.
hand just looks
Yeah.
fucked, and like I'm starting to like kind of like, so it's interesting
Yeah.
because now I'm starting to like maybe come out of the cocoon a little bit, like, and I'm in, and
Mhm.
you're getting hot, and you're making noises too. Like all of a sudden you're starting to like to express yourself. Like you're just being like, holy fuck. and you're like almost like talking to yourself. You're like, okay, I know. So like the thoughts are coming up and you're like talking back to yourself and you're kind of like having this dialogue and this conversation of going on. And you become a little bit more aware of everyone else's process that's going on because everyone there is processing differently. There's others who like you can hear them speaking to themselves too. And you can also hear echoes of some of us speaking to each other, but we're also speaking to ourselves. Like we're not really comforting necessarily the other person, but it's like someone will like say something and it resonates with another person. And so you're just, so there, you know, there's nods of, yes, okay. But at this time, people are also, we're moving around. Some people are in their bed. Some people are out on the deck. Some people are wherever. And so like, you're very much in your process, but you can hear of what else is going around as well as people are expressing in different ways. Like, some may be crying and they talked about, and I know with ayahuasca, it's common to purge, and they say that it's possible to happen with mushrooms too. So we all have some paper towel and a bucket beside us, just like in case.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then just kind of, sitting there and like, just like move, like I'm starting to like move around and express more and looking around at everything that's like going on.
So the energy is kind of, you just feel like you just intuitively called to like, or do you feel like you were moving energy, or you just feel like you were like observing like the effects, or just like kind of whatever? Did you feel like you were moving to like move energy through your body?
Yeah. I mean, I think a bit of both, but we're definitely moving energy because that's the whole point of us being there, is for us to move densities and things. And then at the same time, the medicine women, the shamans, they're coming around and they're going around to the different people that they're called to, and they're either burning whatever they need to, or they're doing energy work above you and moving things. And like, sometimes I would just look up and there's like a figure standing over me doing something. I didn't even know who they were. And I didn't even have the capacity to pay attention to them because I was so much in my own process of what was going on, but they were there doing something to support me. And they would like move around the room as they were called to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so this was early on too. So that particular soul that I've had a lot of grievance and a lot of strife with throughout my life, and a particular female relationship that started when I was really young in elementary school, and it had always been a struggle, a really difficult struggle, and something that always stuck with me. And I built these feelings of feeling like I can't trust women after this. And this was something that went on for years. And it's felt like up until this point, it's always still had a hold on me, even though I was doing the work to work on it. I think a lot of the time I was in denial about it because I didn't want to tell people about it because it was an insecurity and I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want people to know that I cared or that it bothered me. And especially like recently, I kind of would be like, I still feel this person's energy coming at me. Like I want to cut the cord and I keep trying to cut the cord, but it feels like it like can't be cut. Like I feel like there's still judgment from this person onto me. Like they still care about me and very much putting the blame like on them, that their energy was coming, like it was solely coming from them. Which I don't doubt that it was, like that part of it was coming from them. But this soul showed up to me and I just had to sit and look at her. Yeah. And I just realized that we both only ever wanted each other's approval. Like we both at the core of us, we only each wanted to be loved really, really badly.
Mhm.
And I had just put it, I guess put up so many guards um since then and from that experience. But yeah, I just really felt into how badly that soul just wanted to be loved and accepted and wanted approval. And I just looked at her and said, like, I see you and I love you. And again, like, really meant it. Like, wasn't just saying to myself, because I would do this previous where I would kind of say, I'm sending this person love. I love this person because I feel like I should
Mhm.
love this person. I feel like it's the spiritual thing to do. I feel like it's the right thing to do. But I don't know if I actually felt it, but I
Mhm.
would kind of just gloss over it like that.
Yeah.
And this time I seen their soul and I just felt absolute, real, pure love, just love. And
You know what else is like really jumped out at me about that? It was like the fact that you and this person both had the same desire. It was like a unification. It was like it was removing separateness because not only did you understand what that desire was, but you actually both had the same desire
yeah,
of approval, right?
yeah. And I mean,
And I feel like that would transmute some things too in terms of the acceptance of it all.
and there's just so many layers to it because it still doesn't make everything that happened okay. Like, I've carried a lot of pain and a lot of hurt from that story, but I'm ready to release it, or I did release it. I was ready to not let it hold me back anymore for real and mean that. And to also just like, yeah, love the other person and their
Yeah.
process and their experience and set them free because we were we were programmed to, for whatever reason, then to be guarded with each other, or for
Mhm.
whatever happened, or for the
Right.
energy that maybe came from her, or some of the treatment in those times where I felt really sad. And this is an old story that um isn't my isn't really my story anymore, but um that was a programming. It was a programming to keep herself safe, right? And so maybe we acted in
Mhm.
different
Yeah.
ways, but so for me to just really peel back the layers of this individual, and that the core was that she just wanted to be loved and she just wanted approval and she was just trying to keep herself safe, however that was. Yeah, it was really big for me. And then just offering her pure, unconditional love. And I like embraced her soul too, like in a hug. And I meant it. Like, I've never felt that way before. I've never felt like that, especially with this person ever. Like, just absolute love and being like, I see me in you.
Mhm.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
again,
In the past, when you had tried to extend like forgiveness to her or whatever you thought that you were supposed to, like what had been your thoughts around it prior to
I
this
think I had
in terms of like trying to accept it? Like I'm sure you've done work on trying to like forgive or like what had been your thoughts like until now?
I don't know, like, I definitely had done work on it, and there was pieces of me, I think, that
Mhm.
sometimes would feel it, but not to that level. But it always kept coming back of
Yeah.
even like, well, what will this person like maybe think of me? What will she hear from other people about me? Like, is she, and like feeling this energy of maybe keeping up with what I'm doing, or how I'm
Mhm.
whatever, or like just like, like this level of concern. And it was also just this like dropping of like, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Um I
Yeah.
don't care. Like, and then just that love too, and the real forgiveness, and also the thank you, and back to the Hononopo prayer of just like being truly thankful,
Mhm.
because it's like you had to play a part in my life, and thank you for playing that and actually meaning it. I've never
Right.
felt
That's
that, yeah,
big.
like that level before, and it was so freeing. Like I just felt free of this, and I had been, for most of my life, I was in denial about this situation. I didn't want to talk about it. It felt like a vulnerability. It felt like a weakness. Um, and
Mhm.
I was in denial of, I think, about my true feelings. And lately, over the last few months, even weeks, it's been more at the forefront where I'm like, no, this is something that I really want to work through. And I was being more aware of it. So there had been intention that I wanted to work
Mm.
through, but this was such a big thing that I needed to work through the sisterhood wounding, because this is sisterhood wounding. And now I'm in the cocoon womb space with all of
Yeah.
my sisters. Like this is where this story is where all of these thoughts always came from, that trickled out into all these pieces of my life, of always worrying what people thought of
Yes.
me, of being hyper aware, of feeling like I had to change myself to be something else. It was from this story.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in your experience, you were able to trace it back to like really like one core traumatic
Well, I always
wound
knew it was this
story.
story. I always knew it was.
Yeah. 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 That's
Hmm.
what I'm saying. Hmm.
But I think I was in denial about it, or I didn't want to go there with it a lot too, because it was
Hmm.
just so painful. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
also, I think I didn't want to admit to myself that it affected me as much as it did either. So there was a piece of denial. But
Right.
now just, and now, so now I'm in this space of just looking at her and I'm being like, I, you're my sister. Like, we're in this together, and I love you, and I
Wow.
love your process, and I thank you for playing that part in my life so that I can have this moment now and transmute it and transcend it and do the work. And thank you for playing that person, because you made me who I am today. A huge part of this process of this, because was years and years and years and years and years and years, made me who I
Hmm.
am today. And I wouldn't be who I am today if I wouldn't have
Yeah.
went through this. And
Yeah.
wouldn't change it.
True.
And I mean that. And I don't know if a month ago I would have said that. I feel like I should have said
Yeah.
that. I feel like I should have said that, but I don't know if I would have actually
Mm.
meant it. And I mean it. I'm happy, not like that's what's meant to happen, but that was what was meant to happen. And I trust that. And thank you for playing that part, and just
Hmm.
cutting the cord and letting it go. Like, go live your life. I'll go live mine, cutting the cord and be free. And mind you, like, the forgiveness and the acceptance is, me and this person are never going to be friends. Like, we're not meant to. That's not what
Hmm.
this is about. This isn't like
Right.
a
Right.
rekindling,
Hmm.
but I can
No.
still be like, I see myself in you. Um, I have unconditional love, and just feeling the oneness of it all too. But that was major. That's
Hmm.
something that has felt like it's had a hold on me almost my whole entire life.
Hmm. And I feel like too, it's almost just it's sort of the example of, it's like I'm seeing the mirror. I'm seeing the mirror of both of your core wounds of desiring acceptance, and then just, the way that yeah, just the way that it played out in terms of, and how it played out for both of you so differently, with this person kind of taking on more of the, the role of the bully, or the role of the one, in your story at least, I guess, directing that judgment, or directing that hatred or vitriol, that, that affected you so much, and then how that went on to like affect you in a way that it probably doesn't affect her. It's affecting her in a much different way, but it's, I don't know, I'm just kind of being brought, my attention's being brought to like the, the mirror aspect of that core wound, and how it like played out for both of you differently.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, and also just like I'm not a victim. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a
Right.
victim in it. Um I like the
Mm-hmm.
reframe. Like I'm I'm a survivor, whatever that means. But I'm not a victim. Like I'm not this person doesn't have power
Mm-hmm.
over me anymore
Right.
and carrying what they think or attaching my thoughts and my emotions to this story. There's no power there to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also with that, it's like that was my sisterhood wound really in its entirety. And to be able to heal that up in sisterhood, yeah, it was huge for me. And it moved
Mm-hmm.
so much and it's changed so much. And we're
Yeah.
still like, I feel like only at the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. So that was big.
mhm. Finally, I think just making peace with the person and the experience, just true peace and giving myself permission to be free and to let go.
That's going to be it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for being here. And next week will be the part 2, all about the rest of Mikayla's experience in this ceremony. Please give us a subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram at the Orphic Podcast. Also be sure to leave us a rating and review. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Bye.